This is your Wednesday Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Hope you guys are doing well today. Good show coming up here. Chip Scoggins will join me here in a little while. Star Tribune columnist had a really interesting piece the other day on a local athlete who had played hockey and lacrosse all the way up through his, youth and high school career, and then all of a sudden switched to football, gave football a chance for a year, and all of a sudden got a ton of college recruiting and actually just ended up committing to play for Miami. So talk to Chip about that. Really interesting, just kind of the process of what led up to that and things like that. So hope you enjoy that. Chip and I also talked about Andrew Wiggins and the playoffs he is having for Golden State, and not really quite entering regret territory so much yet here, but certainly having a very good finals and kind of making you wonder a little bit of what if you are a Timberwolves fan. Got to get to the Twins. They lost in Seattle. They've been shut out. This was a shutout loss, 5-0. They've been shut out more than any other team in the majors, which is kind of a surprising stat when you understand they're in first place. So we'll talk about that game for a little bit. Lynx lose again. Better process in this game. A close loss, but a loss nonetheless. This one, I believe the final score was 81-79, losing to Seattle. Seattle's a good team, so no shame in that really. But 3-12 now for the Lynx. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. Lynx had a big lead in that game, could not hold on to it. First, though, what did I miss? Want to talk just for a couple minutes here. We'll get more details on this, I think, as time goes on. But learned on Tuesday, Apple TV and Major League Soccer 10-year partnership. The streaming service is going to bring every Major League Soccer game to fans through Apple TV's app. Sounds like there's not so much of a rights fee. I'm reading for the Associated Press story, but a minimum guarantee to the league of at least $250 million a year, which is pretty hefty. Now this, it's just interesting. I don't think we can go too deep on this right now because some of the more of the details of this will emerge. But if you are a Minnesota United fan, no matter where you live, there's no blackout restrictions or anything on this. No matter where you live, if you have Apple TV, starting this, it'll be starting next year. If you have Apple TV, which I've had it periodically in the past to watch certain shows like Ted Lasso, and then have dropped it when I didn't want it anymore. Might be an incentive for me to have it during the season. And this kind of feels like, we keep saying this is the future of sports. Streaming and kind of this fragmenting of channels is the future of sports. It's kind of the present of sports now when you think about how many different games now are going to be available on different streaming services, and now that Apple TV, now that a major player in streaming has gone all in on a league, and soccer makes sense, right? I think reading from the story, it's a younger audience. It's an audience that's used to getting its content through streaming anyway, whether it's MLS or other. I think it said, yes, studies of MLS fans, 83% watch it on streaming or recorded TV in a typical week. It's very a big increase over like the average TV viewer. So, it makes sense to try it in this context, but it's still interesting. What might be next? Will you, in 5 years, will various streaming services have entire packages of games? Will they have entire schedules so that you're not just paying for cable or one of your streaming services that's like cable, like a Hulu or a YouTube TV to try to get your sports? What if you have to pay for a lot of different packages in order to get all these leagues? Interesting to me anyway that's where we are with this. I'll be interested to see how this plays for MLS and Apple TV next year. But it's going to be different. It's going to be different to have this like this. I mean, you're kind of used to having all your sports more or less in one place, and now an entire league sounds like it'll be shifting to Apple TV. So more details on that, like I said, but found that to be interesting. The future of TV is now the present of TV.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
I'd like to welcome Star Tribune columnist Chip Scoggins onto Daily Delivery today. I want to talk to Chip about a few things. Interesting piece you had the other day, Chip. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mikey. How are you?
I'm good. We're recording Tuesday afternoon. It is hot outside. It's an understatement. It's going to be like a couple of days. It's going to be like 100 in the next week or so.
Bring it on. I love it.
You love the heat? Yeah,
this is my kind of weather. The hotter, the better. I love it.
Wow. I was more a fan of the mild low to mid 70s somewhere we were having, but you can have it your way for a little while. We'll jump in the pool. We'll be good. Hey, I guess you figured out the new path to college football scholarship, which is basically to ignore football for almost your whole life. Tell me about this interesting athlete you wrote about and kind of the unusual path he has taken to now committing, it sounds like, to play at Miami.
Yeah, this a kid from Woodbury named Jackson Carver. I've been, covering college sports for a long time and recruiting, not intensely, but following it. And I've never seen a story like this. So Jackson Carver was a kid who grew up in Woodbury, was a really good hockey player and lacrosse player. Never played football. Hockey and lacrosse were his two sports. He went to St. Thomas Academy and played lacrosse there. And then Minnesota Blades, he played in their program, which is, a top, hockey program in the state. And he always played up. So he had ambitions of playing college hockey, maybe professional hockey. Lacrosse kind of won over his heart, and he became a top lacrosse player. He committed to play college at Notre Dame in South Bend. And so that's, nothing to shrug your shoulders at, play lacrosse at Notre Dame. And so there's a top lacrosse prep program at a place called Culver Academies in Indiana. It's a military academy, a boarding school.
Okay. My
understanding is it's basically the Shattuck. Yeah. Picture Shattuck hockey. This is how it is for lacrosse or a top 5 program. They play, national schedule. So he transferred out there from St. Thomas Academy in the winter of his junior year. So he went first semester to St. Thomas, second semester because it's a spring sport. So he played it there. And because of he played hockey all his life, August is the big month for hockey tournaments with Minnesota Blades, and you're always traveling. He never had a chance to play football. He was always a hockey player, so it just overlapped and didn't coincide. So because he wasn't going to be doing that his senior year at this Culver Academy, he said, maybe I'll try football. And so he asked the coach there at Culver if he could join the football team when he came back from summer break, and the guy said, sure. And he's 6'6", 220 pounds.
Yeah, so he's a big kid. So
big, strong kid. When you see him, he's muscular, just well put together, good athlete. So the coach said, well, I can see him as a defensive end, maybe a tight end. So they sent him home with a jugs machine. I talked to the coach. He said, well, we're a boarding school. No one's here in the summer, so we didn't have any use for this jugs machine. So the parents went out, moved the stuff back. They threw it in the bed of their truck and brought it home and here in Woodbury. And they put up the jugs machine in the basement and bought 10 footballs. And again, the kids never played football, knew nothing about it, really just kind of watched it casually. So his younger brother, who goes to St. Thomas Academy, would feed the jugs machine. He would catch him in the base, 200 catches a day. He would work on it. So he started taking videos of himself. And he made one video where he had 10 catches in a row with his left hand, 10 with his right hand, one-handed grab. So he sent the video to the Culver coach and said, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm working on it. Coach was so impressed. He said, do you mind if I send this out to some college football coaches? I know you're committed to play lacrosse, but I just want to send this out. So he sent it to Brian Kelly, who was then the Notre Dame coach. He sent it to Wake Forest, Indiana's assistant coaches. Next day or day after, the Indiana tight end coach called and said, we need to get this kid on for official visit. We need to get him on campus. school started looking at his lacrosse video because there was no football video. He,
right.
Saw his athleticism, so he goes to make he visits Indiana last week of July, last summer, and they put him through a workout. When I say he knows nothing about football, the Indiana coaches had to show him how to get in a 3-point stance.
Wow.
Like, and part of these recruiting visits now, they always put the uniforms on.
Yeah.
Promotion. He didn't know how to put the football uniform on. He came out 2 minutes and says,
like a 6-year-old getting his skates put on him or something.
Yeah. Can somebody show me how to put the pads on? From that, he plays last fall. And all these coaches saw him. He had over 30 Division I scholarships. Gophers, Wisconsin, Iowa, LSU, Auburn, Michigan State, Miami. He was scheduled to visit Alabama unofficially tomorrow, Wednesday, but I assume he's canceled that now because he committed to Miami. He took an official visit to Miami over the weekend. I thought that was probably going to go well. He had a previous visits lined up later this month with Iowa and LSU. I assume he'll cancel those now. He's committed to Miami, but he's played, I don't know how many Culver games they played, 10 football games in his life. And he had all this because coaches look at his size, 6'6", 220. And he has really strong hands. You can see he's a good athlete by watching his lacrosse film. And they look at size and potential. And it's amazing that, from just saying, hey, I'll go out for football this year to all of a sudden he's a 4-star athlete. And I think Rivals has him as 15th best tight end prospect in the country. And what he did also, so he graduated from that Culver Academies a couple weeks ago. He was a senior, but because he's just now, he didn't really start getting recruited until last winter. Well, everybody has their classes full by then. So he reclassified, and he's young for his age. He just turned 18.
Okay.
So he's going to go play at a prep school in Connecticut this year. Just go the fall as a postgraduate, play, the football season and then enroll at now Miami or whichever school he went to. But since he committed to Miami, he's going to roll in there in winter and just go through spring ball. So it's talk about a whirlwind. That is a whirlwind of recruiting there.
And a couple things about this, one, it does show how much, not just size, but athleticism, how much that transfers. And we get so many. I feel like we went through, and Royce and I talked about this on Monday a little bit because he was talking about all the St. Louis Park baseball players who play multiple sports. But we went through kind of this phase where there was this intense specialization. It was like, no, you got to do this sport and you're going to do it all the time. And I feel like it's coming back a little bit. And it does kind of show, like, if you're a good athlete, that transfers a lot of different places. Like you got a guy here who could have been a D1 lacrosse player, plays football for a year, but because of how big he is, because of how athletic he is, and presumably because of what he's also shown on the field a little bit, he's a D1 football recruit now.
Well, and I do think when you talk about specialization, and I hate to say this frame it this way, but it's hard for the average kid, and I'm saying average in air quotes, right? The kid that's the 6th or 5th or 8th guy on a basketball team to say, I'm going to play these other sports and then I'm going to come back and just pick up basketball. It doesn't really work that way. A lot of kids have to play year round in that sport, specialize in that sport just to make the varsity team. But if you're an athlete like this, and I'm not even saying like Joe Mauer, but just a really good athlete, there are things that transfer. This kid has great hands, and I'm sure that's, lacrosse, you have to do it. Lacrosse is a physical sport, so it wasn't having to put on shoulder pads and, smash into somebody wasn't something completely foreign to Jackson. So I think there is something to be said if you have the athleticism and eye-hand coordination and just the competitive drive that a lot of these sports require. I think it's good. And it does. It's not the norm. Like I said, I've never seen anything like this where a guy can just play 1 year or something, but it makes sense if he had never been an athlete, right? If you're just like, I'm just going to try sports first time.
Right. That'd be different. It's like his life he had been in the school play. And now he's going to try sports.
now I'm going to play quarterback for Alabama. So, but no, I mean, but as much as anything, it does speak to the evolution of that particular position he's playing, tight end.
Yeah.
And how football is now that if you can get a big target with a good athlete who can run, I'm sure these coaches know he's incredibly raw. Like when he was playing football, Jackson there, he didn't really know the game. He didn't know the game. He didn't follow it that closely. So he learned what cover 2 is playing Madden football. When he got there, like he didn't know that he was playing defensive tackle and the quarterback was doing the cadence and he was mimicking it, trying to throw him off. He didn't know you couldn't do that. He thought you could hit the quarterback whenever, just 3 seconds after the release.
It's like a scene from an Adam Sandler film or something.
And it's like he really knew not much at all about football. So they're getting a raw product, but I think the coaches said, okay, you can't coach 6'6", 220, right?
No,
and you know he's going to put on 30 more pounds wherever he goes through a college strength program. So he's going to be a real specimen when they get done, putting the weight on him.
What do you think other football players think about this? This guy just kind of waltzes in and it's just like, I mean, not that it matters. It's just like, interesting. Like you come in here and all of a sudden you're the 15th best tight end in the country.
I know. Well, I'm sure when he tells the story, guys are going to be like, what? We played this since we were 7 or whenever.
Yeah, his college teammates are going to be like, I'm sorry, what now?
Yeah. You learn by playing Madden. That's how
you didn't know you couldn't hit the quarterback.
I am curious to see the learning curve. I don't know if he'll redshirt or assume. Because there's still just so much for him to learn. I mean, he didn't know like route, how to run routes and stuff. But he's a smart learner. I will say this: he's a 4.0 student. He went to that military academy and where it's like true military. They lived in barracks, had ranks, marched to breakfast, and he, in only a year and a half, which is almost unprecedented there, he rose to second in command in his unit, which had 54 cadets in it. So he was the second highest ranking officer there, which tells you the kid has some pretty solid makeup and character about him and leadership skills. So he's a fast learner, clearly. And so I think he'll gravitate. But when I heard the story, my reaction is like a lot of people like, what? 1 year? And he's got all these Division I offers. So it's not a common thing. I'll say that.
No. Last question on this, and we got to get to a couple other things. One, was it hard for him to give up lacrosse in this way? I imagine if he's been playing that his whole life, if that was something he'd committed to do in college, obviously, professional upside is greater in the football route. Like if you happen to get really good and go to the NFL, you have a chance to have a life-changing amount of money and fame. But I would imagine giving up a sport, that you've played a long time would also be difficult. Yeah,
he said it was a little, not as much as I thought. He said, I don't know if he was a little bit burnout on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was, he loves the sport, obviously. But I think he also looked at it as like, I don't even know what the lacrosse scholarship situation is. It's definitely not full ride anywhere. Whereas football, you're getting a full ride. And so, but he just fell in love with football. He's like, I want to play in the NFL. And it's him and his family were very strategic about looking at schools that have a track record of developing tight ends. And I think that's why Iowa's high on his list, Miami. He was very deliberate and had a plan. He's like, I want to go somewhere where they develop tight ends and they put them in the NFL. And so that's kind of how he narrowed down his list of, I don't know if you call them finalists, but so yeah, I mean, just like hockey, he missed when he had to give up hockey. He loved that sport. He loved lacrosse, but I think just something about football really pulled on him and the, aspiration to try to be an NFL player someday.
Let's switch gears, Chip, to Andrew Wiggins, who in these NBA finals looks like he's playing an entirely different sport than the one he used to play with the Timberwolves. It's 26 points and 13 rebounds in game 5 that win. I mean, Steph Curry goes 0 for 9 from 3-point range. Andrew Wiggins, probably the best player on the court in that game. And that was coming off a game where he had like 16, 17 rebounds. Something like that. He's had, I counted him up, he's had 6 double-digit rebound games in the playoffs so far. And, again, the regular season, he was fine. There was a lot of these stories written like Andrew Wiggins turning the corner and then he'd have, 2 weeks where he disappeared. So it's not like he's completely changed, but man, Chip, in these finals and in these playoffs, he's been very good. He's been impressive.
Yeah. And when you watched him game 5, how many Wolves fans said that's what you wanted Andrew Wiggins to be? When he was here, he would have games where he'd go off, right?
Right.
Attack
Wiggins would come out.
Yeah, he would score. But to me, look at the way he's rebounding.
Right.
He's soaring above the pack to come down with rebounds. And he's been one of the 3 best players on the court for the entire series. Jason Tatum has a lot of turnovers, but he's been, good for them. And then obviously Steph had a terrible game 5 shooting the ball. He was good in other areas, but Wiggins is not, and we've said that, right? Well, if you get him out there and you surround him and he doesn't have to be the alpha and he can kind of be a complimentary piece. And I buy that a little bit. There's nothing complimentary about what he's doing right now. He's playing like a star, like one of the best players on the court. And so it's in there. It's not like you just have to hide him and, we'll just take whatever he gives us. No, that narrative is completely false. I don't know whether to be frustrated or delighted that that you never saw it consistently here, or delighted that maybe he is showing himself and the world that, okay, he can be the guy that everybody thought he was going to be.
And it comes at a time too, it's opportune time for him doing this on this stage. This is the time when guys want that next contract because he's only got the 1 year left. He was on the same timeline as D'Angelo Russell. We don't need to get too deep on D'Lo because you and I seem to talk D'Lo every single time we talk because it's a shared passion, a shared frustration, however you want to put it. And there's been plenty out there of, Wolves perhaps pushing the narrative of trying to trade him this offseason, and rightfully so based on kind of where everything ended last year and where his contract is. But, with Wiggins, it's, you did think it was always there, and you wonder, is it sustainable? Is he going to keep this going? But he is stepping into that territory, like ever so slightly. He's not in like David Ortiz territory or, or, other guy, KG, had so many great years here, then goes and wins his championship in Boston. He's not in that, regret territory yet, but he's closer than he ever thought. He's closer than I ever thought he'd get.
Yeah. And obviously you have to see it for longer stretches, and I always wrestle with this, Mike, because how many chances and how long does a guy get in the market before you say, you had enough chances, you didn't maximize it, versus, boy, they really dropped the ball in developing him.
Right.
So what is it, like, I'm sure they tried different approaches with Andrew Wiggins here. And I do think there is, I don't want to totally discredit the fact that here he had to be the guy.
Yeah.
There at Golden State, he does not have to be the guy. And maybe mentality wise, that helps him. But he is the guy. He is one of their guys right now in this series. And so that's, to me, is like, he's separating from being just a piece to being a very important player for him. So, but I go back to, is like, when they got rid of him, I cheered it, like, to get rid of his contract and get rid.
Yeah, we all did.
Did they not surround him with the right people? Was there too much pressure of him trying to be the number one guy at age 19 and 20? Is he now just maturing and growing? Was the culture not good for him? Like, that's where it's like somebody was talking about Miguel Sano. Watch, if they get rid of him, he goes somewhere and becomes a great player. It's like, well, he's had a lot of chances here. Right. It's not like they didn't give him he had a short lead. And so that's where I always struggle with is Ortiz. He had a lot of chances here. It just, but do you blame the team? Do you blame the athlete when they go on to do something else? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
I'd be really interested to see Wiggins playing for Chris Finch with the roster they had now. And again, it's all hindsight. You're right. We all were like, wow, they got rid of him and they were able to get the guy they said they wanted at the same time. And it didn't seem like it cost that much. You didn't know it was going to be the number 7 pick at the time. You thought, hey, they could be pretty good. Maybe that pick's going to be in the teens, whatever. But whatever the cost was, they did it all at once. And you're right. He had all these chances here. And I don't even know if they get
Edwards if Wiggins is still here, because maybe they win a few more games that
Sure.
year and they don't get that number one pick. But it would be interesting to see how Chris Finch used him, because, man, this year's team could sure use an athletic wing that can rebound.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't know that he really rebounded this way. His rebounds just jumped out to me in this series. I mean, he's getting everything. And I do wonder, too, how much do you think just age and maturity and being in the league has kind of made him feel comfortable? And I'm sure being around Steph and Clay and Draymond helps you ease in. We're like, well, it's not all on my shoulders, because it was all on him. Right. Not all on him, but him and Towns, they had to carry. They were the guys. They were going to be the franchise, and maybe that's just not. Maybe that makes him feel uncomfortable. I don't know, but I do know when you watch him and you watch him in that game 5 and really this entire series, but game 5 particularly, is like, that is a special talent that we thought he was going to be in the Timberwolves uniform. And for whatever reason, it just, it didn't happen here. And so I'm sure Wolves fans are like just holding their head watching this, not only you have Steph Curry.
Yeah, it's not bad enough. I know the Curry thing was like 13 years ago. Like we were maybe like
never getting over that, Mike. Never.
We're trying. It's been 13 years. So we're like, maybe if whoever has gotten over that now has to deal with Wiggins being, the second, kind of rescuing
best player on the court by a mile.
And then what's going to happen now is whatever happens with Wiggins, who knows if he stays or goes, he's still going to be expensive. Curry's going to be there for a while, but then Kuminga, the guy they got with the 7 pick, that's going to be the next guy to carry on the legacy of hurting the Wolves.
And I do wonder too, like, if you put Wiggins on a team where he is the guy, he is, we all label, you're the number 1 or whatever you're 2, and whether that means anything or not, just in perception and way guys feel about it, he could go in there and not feel like the weight of the world on him, because he didn't have to be. But if he went to an organization where he's got a massive contract and it's a clear he's their 1 or 2, is he going to take that and play with that kind of personality? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, game 6 should be interesting. It feels like this one might be going 7. These teams the games have been, roller coaster rides within the games themselves, back and forth. It's been a pretty good, entertaining series. I hope selfishly that it goes 7 and we get to see more of this. Chip, good stuff. Appreciate it. We'll do this again soon. All right.
Thanks, Mikey. See you, man.
Great to catch up with Chip. Did a terrific job on that column, like we talked about. Good conversation about Andrew Wiggins as well. That series, if you'll remember, will resume Thursday in Boston. Game 6 in Boston, must win for the Celtics. We'll see if they can extend it to a 7th game or if Golden State finishes them off. NHL Finals, by the way, start tonight. Tampa Bay at Colorado, 7 p.m. start in that one. That season going pretty long this year because of the break, the Olympic break that didn't end up needing to be an Olympic break. All sorts of things pushing that back. So that I believe that season could go as long as June 30th if it goes to a 7th game. But we'll see about that. Should be a great series. Both those teams flying in the playoffs. Colorado, just a juggernaut of offense. Tampa Bay will try to slow them down, make that more of a tighter checking series, I would imagine. But either way, those are 2 very good teams. Should be a fun series to watch. Couple things we need to get to quick. Like I said at the jump, Twins lose 5-0 to the Mariners. Got 4 hits total in that game. Joe Ryan coming back from the injured list, had kind of a shaky outing in that one. Didn't even make it through 5 innings, gave up 4 runs. So one they would like to just kind of wash away, I would imagine. One thing to watch, and we've talked about this, I think, a couple different times, but the standings are kind of strange. Twins 2.5 games up still in the AL Central at 36 and 28 after that loss. The Cleveland Guardians 2.5 games back, but 1 game up in the loss column owing to the very bizarre schedule where they've had a lot of games rained out, things like that. They are 30 and 27, so 6 fewer wins, 1 fewer loss than the Twins. So when Cleveland ends up making up those games with a bunch of doubleheaders, I think one of those is even against the Twins before the All-Star break. We'll see if they are making up ground or losing ground with the games they have to make up. Twins and Mariners again today. That's a 3 o'clock start in that one, so maybe a better chance to watch it instead of those late night West Coast games. Finish with the cooler. Lynx lose again 3-12. Again, like I said, a better effort. They had an 11-point lead but could not hold on to it. That team just struggling all around. When you're 3-12, I guess that goes without saying. We're just not used to it. We're not used to seeing this team struggle to the effect it is. But when you're missing so many good players, you would imagine that's going to happen. So I don't know. I don't know what happens next. Do you if they fall far enough, they could be in the mix for a very high draft pick. Interesting thing to watch is that Paige Bueckers, the UConn star, the former Hopkins star, would be eligible for the next draft, 2023. She would have just finished her junior year, but she would be old enough to be eligible for the WNBA draft. So keep that in mind if the Lynx keep sliding in the standings. Not that they're going to try to tank, I guess is the word that we throw around for teams that are purposely losing. I don't think they would ever do that. I don't think Cheryl Reeve has that in her DNA. But if they lose organically and get into the mix for one of those top picks, watch that as we get closer to the 2023 WNBA draft. That'll do it for today. Good stuff coming up on Thursday. I think I'm going to have Chris Hine, Timberwolves beat writer, on to talk draft stuff. We'll be 1 week out from the NBA draft tomorrow. Talk some other Wolves offseason stuff. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll catch you again on Thursday.